From the vibrant heart of the UAE to every corner of the world, welcome to Season 2 of the International Classroom Podcast. Here, we not only explore education through a global lens, but also celebrate the unique needs, experiences, and perspectives each student brings. In each episode, we bring you insights and discussions from experts and educators around the world. They share their invaluable experiences, the challenges they faced, and the innovative solutions they've championed. So, whether you're an educator, a student, or simply someone with a passion for lifelong learning, we invite you to be part of this journey. Now, before we dive into today's episode, a quick note. Ensure you're following us on your favorite streaming platforms to always stay in the loop. And if you're tuning in via Deep Teaching on YouTube and you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, do us a huge favor, do it now. We've been privileged to host some truly remarkable guests, and your support in sharing and liking these episodes means the world to us. On to the episode. Phil Alcock, we're joining us today on the International Classroom, and actually you really do bring the emphasis towards International Classroom because you're joining us all the way from Mexico, which is the furthest we've ever been. So first of all, thank you ever so much. There is a 10-hour time difference, and to say that it took a little bit of effort from my behalf to figure out what the difference in 10 hours is probably a little bit of an understatement there. But thank you ever so much for giving up the time to speak to us today. You are doing some amazing things all the way over in Mexico with an AI, with project-based learning, and I'm really interested in that. So for anyone who maybe hasn't seen this in the work that you put out from LinkedIn, it's like, can you just give us a synopsis, a brief summary of what it is that you're doing with that, please?
Yeah, sure. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be on this podcast. Very excited. Hello to everyone. Really, I just find that when I started, it all sort of my journeys of project learning started when I was really young, and I was not fitting into the school system. I was a bit of a terror in the school systems, and basically I had an opportunity to go and do a gifted program and work, and we did projects. And so I had exposure to project-based learning when I was in year 5 or year 6. And I don't think it's ever kind of left my head. It's just always been something I wanted to do, whether I wanted to get into project management in IT or things like that. It just kind of followed me through. And then my journey kind of led me to being a teacher, teaching in Vietnam, where I sort of started that world of just trying to work things out. And I kind of found when I started to see this system of teaching, it was really based on people remembering, based on people, having to do that quick engagement at the start, and then they do a worksheet and things like that. And it was very structured, not a lot of room for creativity that I felt. So when I went to uni, I sort of came as a mature age student. I really started to dive deep into understanding game-based learning and project-based learning. And so I found that those worlds started to just come together a little bit. And then I had some opportunities at uni to work with. I remember working with a very reluctant student at Epping Primary School it was. And I basically started to do projects with this student, and let's do a project about this. He was interested in hip hop and things like that. So I started this world of, understanding, the importance and the engagement in doing a fun project. And then that kind of just kept me going in my life. I couldn't do too much as a teacher. I was a elementary teacher, started as a grade 3 teacher. I found myself very sort of, conflicted with what I could do. And so I wanted to do projects, but then they didn't quite fit in. I didn't quite know. And then as time went on, I became a sustainability teacher, and I had to teach the entire school sustainability. And I wanted to find a way that I could connect with all the students, have them engaged, not just tell them all the terrors of the world and start recycling and things like that, but actually, how can we do campaigns? How can we make a difference at the school? And so it was my own inquiry and my own self-study that I started to think, well, what's going to fit in and what's going to engage students? And problem-based learning, project-based learning kept popping up. And so I found that there was something so interesting in project-based learning that I just had every single kid in the entire school engage with learning. And I thought, if I can make learning fun, if I can make learning interesting and also teach about sustainability, then it's a great thing. And so then as time went on, I just didn't stop reading, didn't stop watching YouTube videos, started following all sorts of interesting people. And then that kind of led me into a workshop with a lady called Jennifer Klein. and she's amazing. She's an amazing educator, amazing human. And she really started to see that education can be approached differently. And you can have personal goals, you can have academic goals, and you can be really like your own neurodivergent or your own individual person. And so then when AI came along and the chat GPTs and things like that, I started to think, what's going on here? And I started to think, can I connect this? Can I connect that? All the questions that I had about project-based learning that didn't quite work, I found that it just started to connect the dots with some different things. So as now what I'm doing is it's an AI project-based learning project. And I feel that um, it's an approach of just sort of seeing learning differently, coming to school and working on a project. If you're trying to colonize Mars or something, what do we need? What do we need? What do we need? And so you kind of like thinking of learning a little bit differently. Instead of going, this is what we need to teach the kids, this is how we're going to do it. Week 1, we're going to do this. Week 5, we're going to do this. And having these really packed, tight schedules, you're taking these projects, you're seeing what the kids are interested in, and then you're connecting in the curriculum. So it's kind of like the other way around of teaching. With AI, you can use prompts and use different things to connect in these different ways of learning. So I really find that it within my own teaching as well, all around the world, in Vietnam, in Australia, in Darwin, the north of Australia, and even in my experiences in Mexico, I had 100% engagement. And when you have 100% engagement, kids come to school more, kids have less problems, all these kind of things. And parents are saying, I'm seeing these massive differences within my kid. What's going on? What are you doing? And I just keep thinking, well, we're doing projects, and we have lots of projects, and even hearing the kids' feedback about projects, they loved it. I could say I'm teaching it this way, and they have like little bit of engagement. I could say I'm teaching it another way and use a project, and we're designing a fun school and make it really interesting. And you just see that approach and that change in the kids to go, well, what do I do with this project, and how do I approach it, and who will I work with? And it sort of sets up a community as well, where the kids want to learn what the other kids are doing in their projects, instead of just the one person getting it right and following within that traditional structure. You're creating this kind of interesting community with the projects. So it really changes the dynamics of the classroom, and it works all around the world. I really see that it's a really strong methodology, if that's a word.
It's fascinating. I think I'm someone as well, and there's probably people out listening to this that have heard of project-based learning, or the short form is PBL, and you mentioned can sometimes get that confused. Well, is it problem-based learning? Is it project-based learning?
That's right.
But you've touched on it a little bit there with the key characteristics. But what would you say really are the key characteristic or differences between project-based learning and what is traditional learning?
Yeah, I think it's all in the approach. It's seeing learning as not just, you deliver something, you remember that learning, or you can apply that learning, you do a test, you do an essay, you do an exam, and then you get a mark. And I feel like that way of learning, it works fine. I got really great marks in school, and it was really easy for me, because it's like, wait, all I need to do is remember this book, and then I do a test, and then everyone thinks I'm smart. Like, it's just a really formulated kind of way of learning. When you've got project-based learning, you've got a way of no, everyone's kind of equal in a lot of ways. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can add all these different elements to a project. And if, for example, a great example that I think of, a student that I worked with, that she was known as being dyslexic, and she really struggled with all reading work, with writing work, and of course that affected all of her learning as well. So I kind of, when I had this student and I had her for the whole year, the teachers were kind of like, well, she's, you're not going to get very far with her, and she doesn't learn, she can't read, and all these kind of things. And if I gave her traditional assessments and formative assessments and all of those kind of things, she always got really low marks. And so she kind of had this really disconnection to school, and she just didn't like it. Anytime she had to write or read, it was always a big deal, and she would do a lot of things to change and not have to do the work or not come to school and things like that. So it was like these multiple problems. When I saw that student and was like, all right, this student's this amazing, talented dancer. This got a great personality, really amazing how she explains things and conceptualizes things. If I give her a project and we're going to work on a story and we're still going to work on the same learning goal, but we have a project approach, suddenly that student is going crazy and making animations and making videos and engaging other students into learning and everything. And I feel like in some ways, as complex or as simple as that could be, it really just shows that if you give someone a project and you say, we've got to work on this together, and you've got different people doing different things, there's a whole different approach to learning. There's a whole different approach to the way of taking in, these different elements and using a passion and using different ways of expressing, instead of saying, well, your writing's bad, we need to work on your writing skills and things like that. And in the end, it did make a difference in her test results because she had incredible achievement. And a lot of that was based on just her having the confidence to make errors, or having the confidence to do spelling mistakes, or using a speech to text kind of thing, which really changed the dynamic of the way that she could write and explain things. And with a project, you can bring in elements, you can bring in so many people, and everyone has got an equal starting point. There's no best person at a project. There's no person, this person's the smartest and the great at projects, because every project is complicated. It's different. It has different elements. It have a different expectations, and it really levels out the classroom. And that's what I like the most. Is I found that the biggest challenges I had with the kids that would always put their hands up, get all the answers right, the top marks in the grade, they're the best, whatever. And then suddenly put them into a project-based learning environment, and you just see that there's this incredible change that happens in the class, and you start seeing some of those quiet students that would not say much. Suddenly they're in front of the class, or in front of other classes, or in front of assemblies, talking about sustainability issues and everything, and you're like, wow, where did this come from? And in a traditional sense, and you gave them a essay and write a persuasive essay that all kids should, I was in Monterey where they have water issues and water shortages, and you do an essay about you should not save water because of this reason and blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's not going to be as impactful. You give a project about how can we save water and how can we connect with the community and how can we do all these things. Some of these kids that are kind of normally a little bit quiet or not getting the best marks or any of those kind of things are actually starting to speak up and being part of the class. And suddenly you just have this amazing buzz and this amazing community that goes on. And I see that as like any teacher in any traditional environment would love to strive for a class to be just filled with life and happy and buzzing. And there's so much going on. I remember parents and people would be like, we love coming to see your classes, Mr. Phil, because there's just so much happening and the kids are all over the place, but they're all just doing so much work and talking about it, and they're proud of what they're doing. It's not like they're not proud to show their work to their parents because they got a D or something and the teacher said, I got to fix my spelling and I can't do paragraphs and blah, blah, blah. They can talk about these projects and be like, this is what we did, this is what that person did, this is what that person did. And that's a great way of learning because they're really connecting in with other people and considering how they can teach their concepts to other people. And a project gives that chance when they have to present it or teach it or those kind of things. So it's just a very involving traditional education or what's kind of worked in the past. It works for some people and maybe worked for 20% of people, but those 80% of kids that aren't really connecting into that work, suddenly you got big problems. And why wouldn't you want a methodology or a framework that gives 100% engagement and inclusion for all students, not feeling bad that they can't write an essay, instead think about they've made incredible videos and influenced their community and things like that. I mean, it's such a different approach, isn't it?
It sounds that, and you, for want of a better word, one, we can really see and hear your passion for this, but you make it sound so easy. You make it sound like it's one of those things that, you know what, this is easy, guys. We should all be doing it.
Yep.
But we're not. We're not. So talk us through, you mentioned this framework. Just give us this brief synopsis then. I'm fascinated by this. I want to start a project. Give me, some tips and pointers on what I should be doing that will help me get this started in my classroom.
Yeah, sure. I think number one, and this is what I kind of feel, and the advice that I've been given is start a project that you're interested in. Don't, if there's a project going about, what's something that I might not know about? I'm just looking outside a tree. I don't know a huge amount about trees. So if I started a project about, let's find out about all the trees in the world, I might think I could probably only name 4 or 5. Maybe I'm not going to have that same level of engagement. I'm going to have to do all this research, blah, blah, blah. Like all that thinking starts to happen. But if I do a project about sustainability campaigns, I'm passionate about that. I know great campaigns going around in the world. I'm aware of the sustainable development goals. I'm aware of those things. So if you have a project and you're going to deliver that to your kids, really start with thinking about what are you passionate about. And I remember running a project-based learning MIT event at my last school, and it was great because each teacher that I worked with, I was able to say to them, bring your own passion. If you're into sports, let's do it. So it was about alien life. So one teacher was into really amazing basketball player, knows so much about basketball that is incredible. And it's like, well, why don't you start thinking about having an alien basketball tournament? And then the next person, they were into NFL and they were into cowboys and all sorts of random things like, well, let's have a cowboy salon on the moon and the exoplanet. The next person was into craft and creating all these things. It's like, well, let's make your classroom a hub of like creation and textiles and things like that. And they were like, but hang on, that's not about science, or that's not about, and it's like, yes, it is. It's all about science. It's all connecting in, and your students will feel that passion. If you're passionate about something, you're passionate about sustainability, or I'm passionate about cooking, millions of things, sports, cricket, anything like that. Like, talk to me about that, and I'm going to be very much like, I'm going to be interested. I'm going to be wanting to share that with the kids. So I feel that if you take on a project and you work with a team and things like that, if you've all got a way of approaching or having a passion within that project, then it's great. If you're doing a project about mathematics, for example, some teachers are like, oh, I don't know mathematics, I'm afraid of it, I don't want to do that. So that kind of thing could be like a little bit constricting. But if you're doing a project about setting up a colony on Mars and considering maths as part of that project, that might be great for that teacher who's passionate about maths. The other teacher might be more passionate about science or history or something like that. And then you're kind of trying to work with each other and work with the teachers to find, well, how can you pass on your passion? So if you're doing a project, for example, about ecosystems, and not everyone knows about ecosystems, but you might know, well, I like gardens, or I like flowers, or I like things like that. I might just be interested in animals. I go to the zoo. My kids are interested in animals. You're trying to bring, I feel like, your own real life experiences to add to that project, and the kids are going to connect a lot with that. When we did the Alien project, it started off with all these teachers like, I don't know a thing about space, I don't know this, I don't know that, I don't know much about science, you're the science guy, all these kind of things. And I was like, well, hang on, let's make this project about what you're passionate about, and let's, work together about creating the materials, and, I might be able to help with some of the more scientific things and what we can do about the planets, but you guys might be able to help with other ways of interpreting the project. And I feel like in a lot of ways that you can take on any project. I can do a video game project, for example. I love video games. I'm sure you and I could talk about video games a lot as well, Alex. And you know what I mean? Like, we could be like getting involved talking about video games, but then you give a video game project to a teacher who doesn't know video games, and they might be like, I don't know video games. What do I do? There's that kind of fear, but then you go, well, look what's in video games. There's narratives that go on. Do you like stories? I love stories. All right. Well, maybe you can bring a narrative to a video game. We can look at, I can give you some examples of a game with better narratives and those kind of things. So I feel like when you're taking on these projects, there's got to be something that you're into in that project. And sometimes it's as easy as asking ChatGPT. Well, I don't know. I'm teaching history at the moment. I don't know all parts of history. I teach it as tutoring. And so sometimes I just go into AI and I just kind of go, well, I don't really know much about these Romans. Can you tell me some things about them that might make it interesting for me? What did they do every day? What did the kids do? And suddenly you start to just kind of build up your own, oh, wow, they did that in Rome. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Oh, maybe I can look at architecture of Rome because I like architecture, or maybe. So then you're bringing that passion, even though you're teaching the history of Rome, you might be interested in architecture. I'm interested in food and markets and things. So I love to what did they do in the markets? What did they do in the food? And then that's enough. I feel that engagement that you can still cover that material. You can still do the project with the kids. You can still learn it or, find the YouTube videos or whatever you normally do when you're teaching something you don't know. But if you bring that little bit of like interest that you have in that project, which now AI can do with questions, you're going to give that spark. And then once the kids see, wow, you're really interested in that, maybe I'm interested in that, or I'm interested in something different. I want to know what, they did for jobs, or I want to know what they did for that. So suddenly you have these inquiry approaches to history instead of going, we're doing a project about Roman Empire. I don't know anything about it. I'm going to go and hide away, and this is not my thing. You're starting to bring yourself into what your own passions are, into that project. And then I feel that's always the best. The kids will go crazy. The students will really engage with you when you're showing that passion to them and go, well, I don't know much about Roman Empire either, but I do know about this market stuff. And did you know they used to eat this all the time? Or did you know they started selling this when they were in that time? And could you imagine what it would be like for a kid? You didn't even go to school. None of the girls went to school. Or, like you have all these different kind of things that your own interest, and kids were like, okay, it's that thing. It's sort of taking away from being the teacher that knows it all and kind of going, well, I'm part of the inquiry and I'm part of the project with you guys, and let's see what we can find out about all these interesting things. And with the exoplanet project that I did, I had kids teaching me things about rockets that I was like, how do you know that stuff? And they were using AI to explain like I was 10 and everything, and then explaining it to me. And suddenly I've got all these like diverse understandings of things through the students. And yeah, that's how I kind of take it on, is like try to find your passion in any project. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes you can connect, but that's going to give you the energy to deliver that project well.
Yeah, there's a few things in what you've said there that I really want to focus in on and unpack.
Sure.
A year ago, project-based learning, I would have been scared of it. I don't know enough about it, but obviously, but now a year on, and to allude to what you've said in there, ChatGPT and AI makes my job of trying to find information and incorporate that into designing a project so much more easier. But there's a couple of things as well. The pessimist in me, the secondary science teacher that goes, I've got to get my kids through an exam. How can I incorporate a project to ensure that there's learning? What's my success criteria? How am I going to know, that this has been of value? What would you say to that teacher coming at you?
Yeah, I think that's, it's funny. That's also how I think as well. When I started getting onto projects, I was really like, this is great, but the kids are just doing random things and I don't know how to assess anyone. And it was chaotic. I'm not going to lie. I just thought, let's just try to teach everything. And then I was trying to like scrape at the end, trying to work out, what did anyone learn? What did I, and then I gave some kids exams and they didn't do so well. And, I was like, I think I've had a different approach or a different idea about this. It's like, it's not just this fun project of building random things. And then, you still have to do exams. You need to know the content. You need to know, especially in science, you need to know the explicit teaching and things like that. It's interesting. I'm having this conversation at the moment with another guy on LinkedIn, Harren Boak, he goes by. And we were talking about mathematics, and I guess his question at the same time was thinking, but this is great with PBL and all these things, but how does it connect in with mathematics? It doesn't really give me the skills and things like that. So we started coming up with the concept of a Mars colony project. And we thought to ourselves, well, let's do a big project, which is kind of pretty open. You can do a lot of fun things in that project, but then within that project, you can have mini projects. And that's where I feel that those mini projects are still your explicit teaching. These kids need to learn, for example, if I know a lot of kids have problems with division and grouping and long division and things like that. It seems to be in any school I've gone to, the concept of division and things like that. And I feel like if you're doing a project, I don't know, to do a specific math project on curriculum standards would work as well as having like a big project on a Mars colony, but then still having your teaching. So you might have a need, you can still have a problem that, let's say, for example, there's 19 people on Mars and They're all running out of oxygen really fast, and you've only got 6 tanks left, or you've only got 5 tanks left. How are they going to solve this problem? And I feel that some ways project-based learning is seen like that, and then the kids go off and try and work it out, and that's it. But you still got to teach them the skills to work that out. And that's where you do like the mini workshops, or that's your explicit teaching or your small group teaching and things like that. I feel that in project learning, you can be a little bit more targeted. So you can set up your groupings and things like that and go, all right, those kids are really struggling with maths and they need a lot of support with conceptual things and, concrete materials and things like that. And you can have another group that's quite more advanced that are starting onto a higher level of maths and things like that. I still would put it out as a project, but I'd also say this is a teaching part of the project. This is a part where you need the skills, because this is our big problem. We need to help a Mars colony. We need to help people survive on Mars, but we need to know those skills. You can't just give oxygen to random people. What's going to happen if it runs out? What happens if you give one family all this food and another family not the food? You need mathematics skills to know how to divide that evenly, or to divide that into things that are going to last longer. So I feel like it still gives that real authentic outcome to learning. You're still approaching it in a way of a project, but you're not quite saying we've got to come up with this together and everyone's working together to solve the problem. I don't know if that's the right approach. I would feel that you've still got you've got that open-ended question and things like that all the kids have to solve using their own strategies and their own skills. But you still need that teaching. Kids need to know these fundamental skills. There's exams everywhere. We need to assess them. There's standardized tests all around the world, especially in Australia. They have NAPLAN. We can't just go all out project-based learning, let's have fun, and then all the kids bomb in NAPLAN, and you think, well, what good is that doing, and how is that going to support the kids for universities and high schools and scholarships and all those kind of things that are really that you need to know those fundamental skills. I think that a project can drive the learning. And my students used to know when I used to say, okay, we're doing a persuasive writing. And in universities, we do essays. And in essays, you need to know how to write them and structure them. If I just said to you, write a letter and don't teach you those skills, you're not going to learn how to write those amazing essays and amazing speeches and things like that. So we need to work together. We need to find out those skills. We need to work out how we can really understand how to make our sentences better. We need to understand how we can read more to find better words. And so then I feel like in a way that's that sort of co-creation that you're having with the kids, is that you're sort of saying, well, look, I can see that, we've done a math test. You got all these questions wrong. We need to know these skills to help our Mars colony project. And imagine what would happen if we can't work out division. There might be some people that are suffering, and and having that kind of connecting in the need of what they learn for mathematics or science into the project. And then I've seen kids just kind of go, wow, I need to learn division now because these people in Mars are going to suffer. And it's amazing that they can just go, oh yeah, I get it now. Now I need to learn division. And suddenly they've got a motivation, don't they? They have a certain motivation that they want to be like, well, I want to help my team, or I want to help the class build this colony on Mars, and I kind of need to learn these skills now. Instead of saying, you got this wrong, this is how you do it, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And those strategies work. I can definitely be like, sit down, you need to do this, you need to do that, this is the strategies, all those kind of things. And that can definitely can work needed sometimes. You need to have a very structured approach, but I feel that once you have that, like, well, we need it because of this reason, and let's see what we can achieve together, and let's see what the group, you can maybe add a little bit of the project element, but you've still got to be, I would call them mini workshops or learning workshops. And that's how I would approach it with the kids. It's like, well, we're going to do a learning workshop on long division today. I would say to them, who wants to join? And then some would put their hand up and some wouldn't. Be like, all right, cool. And I'd know the people that I want to work with. that kind of need that support and one-on-one or small group support, and I'd be like, all right, you guys can work, and can I just have these people join as well, if that's okay? Yep, that's fine, cool. We'll just do it really quickly, 10 minutes of instruction or 10 minutes of activities, and then you can go back to your project, building your amazing school on Mars or whatever you're working on. But it's just a sort of way of like giving them that need. It's like, well, this is why we need mathematics, because of this, and you're wanting to do this, and this is the applicable side. And sometimes space is really great for that, and Mars and things like that, because you can be like, well, what would it in Mars if they need to work this stuff out, if we need to learn out geometry because we need to, manage these buildings and make sure they don't fall down and things like that. You're giving a real world outcome, but you're not taking away and moving away from explicit and really good teaching that you need to give those strategies for sure.
Yeah. My thinking fast on everything that you have just said is really about modifying the curriculum. I have students come up to me all the time and go, when am I really going to need biology in the real world, sir? Really? And they've got a point. I will not be the only teacher that's ever heard a student come up to and go, when am I ever going to need this? It happens all the time. And in my process of thinking fast of what you have just said, it is really then about how I as a teacher would approach the planning and design of the curriculum. And what I mean by that is, let's say I have to teach topic 6 for EdXL to year 11. It's about photosynthesis. So it's about plants. They need to know about how photosynthesis works and how water moves, how nutrients move through it. So those types of things. But actually, if you were looking at it from, say, a project-based, you could plan it out. And I'm drawing on my experiences of being MYP. And I love the MYP because it was all about concepts and skills. And if you had that, you could go, right, we've got a real-world problem here about sustainability or impacts of deforestation, or then how that affects the atmosphere and numerous other things. And you go, actually, interdisciplinary. Because one of the things moving forward now with where we really want education to go in the future is about not standalone silo subjects, but this idea of interdisciplinary where lots of things can come together. So I can have elements of geography and elements of math, and then obviously I've got my biology and I've got elements of design, creativity, and what we're going to come on to shortly and talk about AI. But all those things could come together, and it's really then a case of that could be fascinating, because when I plan this thing out, I could go, right, I've got my big overarching picture. I know what I want them to get to at the end. And within that, I need pockets or workshops of, right, I need to take you through this. I still need to teach you this content, because I think sometimes there's a confusion or a misconception about projects that it's just like, I'm going to tell you the project, you're going to go, and then I will just observe, I will sit back, and I don't have to do anything as a teacher. So I really like the fact that you've highlighted the point of, no. Students still need to learn things, students still need to do things, and I think it's actually just it's an innovative way of looking at how students learn. And as you mentioned earlier about all students, not some, but how all students learn, because it gives them the flexibility, creativity, and independence to approach it in their own way. And yes, you can still have your tests at the end, you still have to have your assessments at the end, but you know that within that you've had those pockets of telling them what they need to do, and you're giving them the opportunity to go and apply it to a real world scenario where you can go, right, that's how you can do it. Because in science it's pretty easy. You can pick out anything about sustainability, or you can pick out global warming, or you can pick out water scarcity, any of those. It lends itself to it really, really nicely. And now with the advancement of AI, you've got no excuse to go, right, you can spend 10 minutes and find something out really, really nicely. And that brings us on to the next part of this conversation to have with you. You posted something a while ago on LinkedIn that said, I was offered this amazing chance in Dubai. I was offered this dream job in Dubai, and I've turned it down. I'm really curious about that. What did you turn it down for? What is it that you are now pushing and doing with your time, Phil?
Yeah, thanks. I'm not going to name the school, just to be polite. I'm sure they're a great school. But yeah, it was this really strange point in my life where I was like, I got onto this PBL. I mean, I've been doing PBL. It's just been living, breathing for the last 10 years. But when AI kind of came along and I started connect all these dots and everything, I'm like, I got to tell people this. I got to tell lots of people this. This is exciting. This is really interesting. And I had this moment in this interview, and it was a really scary interview. I'm not going to lie. It was really intense. I was kind of really just like, what do you know about STEM and what can you do for the school, and we're award winning and we've done all these things, and how can you build to our school, and how are you good enough, and all these kind of really, really intense kind of expectations. And I was like, wow, this is pretty crazy. I don't know if this is right for me. And I was like, well, look, I'm not going to try and prove anything to you guys. That's what I said to them. But I'm going to show you some cool stuff with AI. And the person in charge was like, we don't let people share their screens in interviews. We need to know that you need to know this information, blah, blah, blah. And I said, all right, that's fine. But I'll talk about it. It's going to take me a lot longer than just showing you some cool things. I was like, oh, all right. I'm going to let you have access to share screen capabilities. Like, it was pretty funny. And I was like, all right, cool. Thanks. All right, here's blah, 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 blah. And I just kind of went in my own tangent, talking about AI, talking about how I've made prompts to make project-based learning. I showed them how I can, dissect curriculum codes and make them into narratives and all this. And they were just like, I could see them sitting there like, who is this guy? And he just completely took over all their questions and things, and just kind of went on his own direction. And I just felt this confidence, I really did. And it was interesting that they ended up offering me that opportunity. I was like, well, maybe I was too confident, or I shouldn't have really taken over. I had those kind of thoughts afterwards. But then I thought to myself, you know what? I think there's something great going on with AI. There's something amazing going on with PBL, or I've known that already. But with AI, it can do so much more. And these guys were like, oh, it's going to take 4 weeks for a process. We got 100 other people to interview and blah, blah, blah. The next day, must have been thinking about it or whatever. It was like, Phil, we want you to work here kind of thing. And I was like, all right, I've got this opportunity to go and live in Acapulco in Mexico with my wife, and start my business, and with really no money, with nothing, with just kind of like, all right, I'm just kind of going there on a whim. As long as I get access to internet, I think I'll be able to work something out. Or I've got the Dubai and the great opportunities, and people from OpenAI live in this community, and blah, 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 and all these kind of things that they were offering. And I was like, maybe I can do something important for teachers and educators. And there's a lot of great teachers around the world that know a lot of great things, and they're afraid about going out on their own, and they stay in schools and they stay in these institutions where they can't be creative, and there's all sorts of like data shaming and all sorts of crazy things that go on in the world. But maybe I can sort of just be that teacher to go and, well, I'm going to go and do this on my own. I've got a little bit of money. I don't have all of these things. I can just kind of do it and create something using AI to help me, using AI for marketing, for sales, for admin, to help me write emails, to help me understand my own processes, to help me analyze business documents, to help me analyze trends, to help me. I've got a really great partner here in AI, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to start this project and a business. I'll see how it goes within a year or two, and just kind of, I can live off cheese and ham sandwiches if I need to. I don't care. I'm just kind of like, I want to go all out with this idea, and see it as something to go, well, I gave up this amazing Dubai opportunity to go and start my own business because I believe in it so much. I believe in PBL. I believe in what AI can do for education. And I really think if I just get in here and I can have this chance to talk to teachers and give them that confidence that AI is not just about students cheating and the negative things that go around. It's so much more. And why wouldn't you want an environment in the world where all students want to love going to school? Schools are communities. They're solving sustainability problems. They're engaged with their learning. They're not forced to do this difficult work that works tailored for them through AI. And I felt like I just want to give this a go. I want to just take my gut feeling, where I feel like when the internet was starting to explode, I had all these ideas, and I thought, no, I'm not good enough, and I can't do this and whatever else. I just thought, well, maybe there's something inside of me. I'm in Mexico. I can do great things here. I've done great things at this last school. I've got great contacts. I can always go back to that school. I can always go back to all these other schools around, and if I need to. But let's take a chance with this, because if I can pass on this knowledge and this passion and the way that I believe that education is going, then that's a great thing. And I feel I sleep really well every night. I've been through a lot, going through a hurricane and things like that, but still this project has just got me back on track. It's like there's so much passion. There's so many interesting people on LinkedIn. There's so many cool things that I'm sharing. I'm starting to do workshops now and things like that. And these teachers are just seeing these looks in their faces and the light bulb moments and all those kind of things, and think this is a really great thing. Education has been stuck for a long time, and there's all sorts of strange levels and systems, and even in universities, I quite know that system behind the world, and they can't say this and they can't do that. And what's allowed now with AI, and especially with project learning and evidence-based learning and portfolios and different ways of assessment and all those things, is you're actually giving much more opportunity to much more people in the world that generally wouldn't have those opportunities. And now, I feel there's just something great in what I achieved in my own classroom, where I had parents hugging me and, like, wow, my kids are just loving school now because of you. And it's like, it's not because of me, it's because of AI and it's because of PBL. And if I've got this class where every one of my kids won an award and all the other teachers were like, how did that even happen? I'm like, but that's academically. Look at how happy they are. They're skipping, they're running to class, they never miss days, they're loving to learn. And I love to learn. I love to pass on my knowledge and passion of wanting to learn. So this project's kind of just become, it's really my passion about learning and being involved in learning, and also seeing, like, the world of the poor kids that are dyslexic and the poor kids that don't quite fit in because of their special needs and they're always behind and things like that. Then why are we looking at people that they're behind? Why can't we see the great things in them and create that really great inclusive environment? And schools will be amazing then. I'm sure the problems and mental health and things like that are really going to improve and transform when teachers know how amazing AI is, and we're just at the beginning of it. So yeah, I just took that passion and that drive to keep going.
No, it's fantastic. It sounds like there's a real sort of, one is passion, definitely, but a hunger. And I think that's always important when you set off on a journey, when you're paving your own path, as it were. Like, as you've alluded to, I imagine there are times when it has been scary and you've taken that jump. And for all intents and purposes of the work that I've seen you put out so far, and one of the reasons why, again, through LinkedIn and those connections and seeing and sharing, it's of such high value. It's really, really good quality. And you mentioned something there in it that kind of resonates with me as well, about diversity, about inclusivity. And I'm just interested in you elaborating on that a little bit more, because I think that people don't necessarily see the benefit of AI or what you're talking about to be able to generate those types of tasks and activities that allow, like you mentioned earlier, 100% engagement for all, and not just of normal or abled, but actually about the inclusivity and diversity. So how do you go about fostering that?
Yeah, so I guess it's seeing the individual as the individual. I think I was having a chat with Matt Ivey, who has a dyslexic AI website, and he's really switched on in this world. And a lot of other echoing statements is, if we see the individual as the individual, instead of saying they've got autism, they've got this, they got that, whatever it is, if we just take away that for a minute and we see there's an individual, this is the way that they like to learn. This is what they're interested in. These are the things that are difficult. This is all of that. And then you start to see, I guess, all right, there's a kid who has been diagnosed as dyslexic and they're struggling to write. Why are we giving that kid a test every single time? Why we keep putting them through this stress all the time when we straight away know they can't do this. They can't work this out, these words, these different things, all of that. But if we can then use AI, for example, to create a personal learning plan, and we say, all right, here's a learning goal that we have. We have that for grade 5. We want to teach them that they want to write a story with a complex resolution or whatever it is. Then you can then adapt that to that person and go, well, asking AI, what are some other ways that they could present that? How could they show their learning? How could we create a rubric without writing? How can we do all those kind of things? Maybe they need a project. Maybe they need different ways to understand it or to meet those standards. And so when you've got a personal learning plan for every person, I love writing. I've always loved writing. I love maths. I'm an interesting person that I don't have subjects I don't like. So I can just be like straight into whatever. History wasn't so much, but now I love it. And so I feel like the way that I learn and it works in a school system has made me get amazing marks. Top marks in the school, golden key societies, blah, 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 all these things. Because I know how to learn like that. And I like to learn like that. You give me a complex problem and thing, you give me rubrics, you give me all those things, I'll work it out. I'll go to the teacher. How do I get the best marks? That's it. And I won't stop until I get the best marks in the class. And that kind of works for me with my way of learning. So this school system says, all right, Phil's a gifted student. He should be part of the gifted kids. He's too smart for these. I get praised everywhere, blah, 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 blah. That's fine for me. But I'm also not that engaged because I'm not doing things that I'm interested in and whatever. So I'm just like, oh, I'm amazing at school, but I don't like it. Whereas if I was given a plan and like, well, what are you into? What do you want to do? Da, 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 da. And I had more interest into, say, coding or developing and things like that, then maybe that would have set me off in a different pathway. I would have seen school a lot differently. I might have enjoyed it a lot more. When there's students that are also like dyslexic or students with, I always used to like teaching, they used to give me the low math groups and things like that. And you kind of find these kids are coming up with concepts and understandings higher than anyone that I'm hearing in some of these other ones. They just don't have the cognitive capability to work these things out. So I feel that with AI, you're giving everyone this personal learning pathway. You're not saying you need to be here by the end of the year. You're saying this is your pathway. These are the things we're going to work on. This is how we're going to meet those misconceptions. And we can create then individual, where at the moment I'm working in a group that's like a neurodivergent AI group. And we keep coming back to the same points of, well, once you're passionate about something, once you have a project, once you're interested, let's say we do projects about dance or video games or things like that, then you can then work with students with special needs to kind of go, well, what can they do? What's recommended? What does the evidence say? If there's a common understanding, I don't know a huge amount about autism, so I don't want to be an expert, but I'm still quite passionate about autistic learning. And there's something that says, you can teach social emotional skills in a classroom and they don't understand it. And they'll find it really like, I don't really understand what this is about. But you can teach that within Minecraft education and do the same lesson, but have them interact and explain things as the character in Minecraft. They're still meeting those needs. That's still a way. So you might say, well, let's do a project in Minecraft so we can meet the needs of all of those people. We can still teach the skills in the class. We can do our teamwork activities and all of that they have in those social emotional learning, but we can do it within Minecraft, or we can do it within in a different platform, or we can talk about how a character's going through that. And that really, one of the things that I'm even working with a student with autism at the moment, that she really struggles to write about emotions and her emotions and the character's emotions. And the way that I kind of did that as I worked with AI, I was like, well, I'm creating this project. I want to teach emotions. I want to do a narrative. I want to do writing exercises based on that. And these are the emotions that the parents have said that she struggled with and things like this. And then put that into a narrative and then have the student then understand the narrative and go, well, look what that fox is going through. Wow, they're getting really stressed and they're getting really angry because they're going through a really lot of problems. And wow, I've kind of felt like that myself because I'm like the fox. Wow, the fox is like me. And it's sort of what you're doing then is you're using some really, it's quite basic in AI and ChatGPT or something like that to kind of go create a story, use these emotions, blah, 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 blah. You're then, instead of trying to teach the one way, you're looking at using a narrative, or you're looking at using a video game like Minecraft or you're looking at using a project, or instead of them saying you've got to write an essay, you've got to create a persuasive speech or something where you can record it, you can talk to me about it, you can interpret it with me. If a student's got ADHD, for example, you can break things up, make it really simple. Each project, they've got 10 steps to the project instead of giving them a worksheet. Things like that are just, they're really little kind of changes. I'm only really starting to get into that world myself, but I'm so passionate to work with great educators that are also starting to go, well, there's a lady, I can't remember her name. Sorry, she works with Google. She's created this dyslexic typing program, and basically the kids can type into it, and the AI and things will actually work out links with the way that they're saying things and create more formative sentences. So then they can then put their stream of thoughts onto the document and type it out, and it might not make so much sense, but with AI, it can start to go, all right, we've got these links here and we've got these links here, and then they can actually type. And if you think about that, a dyslexic kid being able to write an essay with the assistance of, a dyslexic AI document enhancer, or to be able to use a immersive reader that has an access to everything, that doesn't sound like a robot talking, that actually sounds like a human talking, explaining the things to them. They're getting that same level of learning. They're understanding it. They're probably putting it into other verbal and visual ways that most of us can't. Then they're able to then teach it to us or repeat it back to us and be really involved. And I feel like this is where AI is becoming so amazing, is that I feel that there's going to be people working on it now, or I'm working on it, or whatever, that you can then sort of go, well, this is a project that I want to do. How do I meet the needs of this student and this student and this student? And then it can come up with individual pathways that then those students can access that learning and be able to create something that doesn't mean that their essay is compared against the rest of the class and they're getting a D and those people are getting an A, that they've sort of got their own set of rubrics and ways of looking at things. And then they have that great success because they're like, wow, I did this essay, I worked with this dyslexic program, all these kind of things, and I can still come up with this greatness of learning and outcomes instead of going, oh, now I got to do this test and I can't write and I'm going to get low and switching off and losing that motivation. We should keep that motivation going and allow people to, bring their own thoughts or interpretations or ways of explaining. I think it's really up to a collective teachers and community to work together. And, there's amazing autistic resources out there that I'm sure most people don't know about. Dyslexic resources. It's like, oh, really? That helps dyslexic? I've even seen that now and finding it out. It's like, now we can use AI to connect these dots. ChatGPT is probably not going to be the best because it's just going to come up with the most common information or whatever. But as these custom agents and bots and things that are created, then suddenly you're going to have a lot more better knowledge and better support to help all kids of different learning abilities.
Do you think, I'm going to put you on the spot then, do you think education would be better if we scrapped tests?
That's the big question, isn't it? Yeah, I think they're needed. I think a diagnostic test or something, you still got to gauge where people are at, roughly, but I think there's better ways of doing it than sitting kids and telling them all to be quiet and saying, all right, now you've got to do this, like a NAPLAN testing environment. I've seen kids cry and pressure from parents and all sorts of things go on. Those kind of tests I don't think are very fair for most of the kids. So if you look at it just from a humane perspective, it's like, why are we putting these people through this amount of stress? But also, you do need to have tests because, my wife's a doctor and she needs to know what medicines to give people and what things are. So if she doesn't know that and you just give her a degree and go, you could be a doctor because you got a great personality, it's also going to be a bit of a problem. So you kind of, I see it from, I mean, it's funny because I have these conversations a lot with my wife, and to think about testing and, what would you be like if you didn't do an exam? And she'd be like, probably wouldn't learn half the stuff. So it's like, she has that, she knows I got to learn all these things so I can do it for the exam. If we could maybe find another way, I've got to learn all these things to apply it to this project or this something, then that could also be a way of testing rather than just having a sit down test where, I've seen the stress that these doctors and doctor students go through trying to study for these exams, and it's intense, and they have to know everything and they memorize everything. They can only have one page of notes, all these complicated scenarios. But could we test them in a different way than sitting them all in a big room with grumpy looking people walking around? I've been an exam interrogator or whatever it was and tried to stop, found people cheating and everything. But can there be better environments where we can assess people? Because it's just like that feeling. I feel that sometimes teachers are like, nah, that kid shouldn't have got a 60% in that test. I know they're really good. I can't give them a C in maths because of the summative. I should be giving them a higher mark because they are capable. I've seen them in class. I've seen them put their hand up. I've seen them engaged in their work. And, often teachers will change marks based on their own personal judgments anyway. So, the testing isn't always so accurate. And what are we doing with this data as well? Like, all right, we've got all this great data, and what does it actually mean? Just because they got question 3 wrong, does that mean the entire school now has to focus on inferencing or something when maybe the question was badly worded? Maybe an EAL student didn't understand it, so all the EAL students couldn't understand it. I don't think tests are generally strong enough to be, reflective on what the truth is anyway,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the debate and a question that's going to rage on for a long time as well. Even today, before we came onto this, like on LinkedIn, I got tagged into something asking a very similar thing. And whilst there's money to be made from exam boards, it's a challenging one about who's going to drive, what is going to drive the change to happen. And that will be, I imagine it will rage on for a very long time. And talking about long times, you must have some future plans and goals for the AI and project-based learning. Where do you see yourself? What is it you would like to achieve in the next 6 months, year, moving forward with what you're currently doing?
Yeah, I think I kind of feel that I'm so new with AI. I feel like I've got an AI x PBL thing going on, and I feel like I just want to learn more about it. Learn more from great people. I probably feel like I'm going more in a developing, understanding what AI is kind of stage to use, instead of having a chat bot to create interfaces for people to use. And I feel that I definitely want to continue working with great educators, developing interdisciplinary projects, looking at how we can solve the assessment problems, looking how we can simplify PBL, because it's very complicated. And as much as I can talk and be passionate and talk about all these different how I've done it in a class and it's worked, and you don't know whether I'm saying that or whatever. It's like, to actually give that to a teacher and say, here's everything that I know, is going to be really overwhelming. And it's like, well, what do we do? How do we do this? How do we do that? And I feel like I see myself ultimately working with school leaders and people that can really sort of create better, more creative, engaging environments in schools, and constant, like, still working. I've got a lot of clients and teachers that I work with, and I'm gaining lots of data and feedback about how this is working, what they need, and things like that. But I guess the one thing that I'm really finding at the moment is that within what I do and the way that I teach things, there's something about it is a little bit engaging. It's a little bit interesting. It's a bit like, well, what's going on there? And I feel like I want to kind of get this knowledge out of my head about, how you can implement PBL really well in your classroom. I don't want to be like here's a one-day course to be the best PBL teacher in the world. I want to find ways that maybe it's in most probably in YouTube videos or Udemy courses or things like that, where I can really break down the concepts of in this innovative learning or critical thinking learning or this way of inquiry approach that you can then, a teacher can take this on. It's taken me many hours to study to get here. So I want to kind of think, well, how can I teach other people by breaking things down, by not just giving my passion, but giving real great strategies that are going to work in the classroom. How do we set up the class? How do we set up the community? How do we set up these projects? How, if things don't go right, what do we do? And really find a way that I can connect with teachers, leaders, district leaders. I chat to all sorts of interesting people every day. Just people message me on LinkedIn asking me for advice, people with companies, people with all of that, is also to try and work out, well, if we're moving to this new way of education, and most likely it's going to go in a evidence-based and things like that, how can we do it that it's not like, bang, here you go, teachers, work this out and deal with it? It's like, how can we actually make it really interesting for teachers to go, well, can we just start with a little project in the class? Can we just start something? Can we talk about it as a school? Can we work out what's working and what's not working? Can we create a better synergy between teachers and leaders and have more enjoyable experiences for teachers? Like, I feel that teachers are just getting burnt out. I was kind of a bit burnt out by the end of my 5 years of exploring PBL and everything else. And I see a lot of big problems in the world, in the US, in the UK, even in Australia. They're losing great teachers and they're losing all of this. And how can we make teaching a little bit more interesting, less cognitive load? How can we use these AI tools carefully that we can create better environments for teachers, create more engaging environments for students, and to make it more accessible, to make it, AI is out there. I have lots of conversations about it with my friends, but how can we use it well? How can we as a school or a community use this thing really well, be ethical with it, be aware of the challenges, be aware of digital literacy and AI literacy, and actually, I feel like my role at the moment is just to kind of be like, I want people to feel my passion about PBL and AI, because it's a way of engaging all students, and it's a way of giving everyone a chance to be heard and seen and understood. And we don't need to know all the answers as teachers. We don't need to read 5 books about dyslexia, but we've got experts around the world. We could have, with AI, we can now connect and understand some of these approaches a lot better, but to create better learning environments and to just keep, I feel like I'm on a path now to just really simplify what I'm talking about, to really break down the intricacies of what learning means and how learning has worked in the past and what purposes it served for, as whereas how can we best prepare our kids to an interesting future that's relevant? How can we then also train the teachers without having them going, all right, everyone needs to do a course in AI and know how to program a Python thing by the end of the year? That's way too much. How can I teach people these really kind of simple but effective tools, and then pass on my knowledge about PBL, through workshops, through videos, through all of those avenues? That's I guess what I'm really aiming, because I feel like I feel honored that I'm able to be here talking to you, that I've just started this project. It feels like yesterday that I had this idea. I had many people going, "You're crazy, Phil. You're getting all these great offers. Why don't you go and live your life a little bit for a while?" And I am talking on podcasts and being part of this amazing revolution of education. But I also want to feel that I want people to be comfortable and confident, and teachers to feel like, I don't want to be leaving in 3 years because this is getting too much, that I'm going to be part of a really great transformation of education. It is going to be hard work to get all this stuff done, but at the same time, it's going to create these amazing learning environments, amazing places that people can enjoy learning. And I really, my biggest goal is to really support teachers, the people that are out there doing it, to just help them just feel that maybe AI can help me just a little bit and take off a little bit of stress, and and to understand that what we're going through is a really important thing, but it's not so difficult. I feel like sometimes if I can work it out, anyone can work it out, because I'm confused as anyone at the start. I'm like, what is this AI? I'm still like, what is the LLMs? And sometimes I'm like, how do I work this out? I'm not an expert myself, but I feel like just have that belief, have something inside of yourself that feels like I can contribute, or I can understand something, and teachers have got amazing knowledge and ways that work out really complicated situations. So we're really at the forefront of the AI movement, I feel, in the world.
Definitely, I agree. I mean, I can completely empathize with you, because I am exactly the same. Once they threw a third letter into AI and they were calling it GAI, it threw me off. So little things like that, it's going to keep evolving, it's going to keep moving. But you know what, Phil, just listening to them, I'm sold. I'm sold, Phil. You have sold it to me. You have pitched it across fantastically. Thanks. I want to come and work with you, Phil. I want to learn more from you. Where am I going to go to get the best out of you? Amazing.
Thank you. You're welcome anytime. I'm just sharing everything on LinkedIn at the moment. That's my initial kind of. I like that I can just have those interactions, and I like that I can connect. I am starting an AI Teachers. Well, I've got the handles on Twitter, X, and Facebook. So it's just AI Teachers. I'm really going to start driving that over next year. So if you don't use LinkedIn or are a little bit afraid about all the, whatever goes on LinkedIn, then you can find me on Facebook, AI Teachers, on Twitter, X, AI Teachers. I will be posting more. But keep an eye, and also www.aixpbl.com. All of those things are going to be my main ways of communicating. Also, just anyone, feel free to, if you want to contact me, if you want to call me, even you, Alex, I'm sure we can have a good chat about video games and other cool things in Dubai. I did really want to go to Dubai and learn some things. So, I feel like anyone that just wants to contact me and go, well, what's this and how can it work for me? Or, how can I join up? How can I find out about your workshops? LinkedIn is generally the best place to contact me. But then now I've got this Facebook and Twitter and things like that you can just get in contact with me there. On my website, I've also got details to contact me as well. So, just feel free, get in contact, ask me what I'm talking about, or to break things down, or to explain things more. I really look forward to just connecting with so many amazing educators and amazing people. I'm really honored to be here now talking and to talk a little bit about what I know and my passion, but I feel that I'm only just beginning, and I'm at the start of AI. I'm kind of like, I don't really understand all this computer science just yet, but I do use that power of yet. It's all about yet. Let's just try and work it out. And then, hopefully I can really share my knowledge and continue to train people that are teaching and making a difference already.
Well, we are excited. I am excited to see what 2024 is going to hold for you, Phil, because, again, just having listened to you now speak about everything and your interests and what you're passionate about and the things that you want to do, I think your selfless and tireless work for the teaching community is something we all appreciate. And I will say now, thank you for that, because it is of real value. And I think for me, that's always the biggest thing. And this is why I wanted to speak with you, because, it's a value. Now, first of all, if you're not on LinkedIn and you're listening to this, you're missing out. You get yourself on LinkedIn. Because, again, people like yourself on there just offer so much value, free value as well, may I add, that will really help your performance and progression as an educator in terms of how the world is going to go in the next 6 months, year, if it hasn't already. So from myself, Phil, thank you for the time today, for coming to speak to us. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and I really, really look forward to seeing what 2024 has in store for you and the AIX PBL. There's a lot to get out there. I think I got it right. But yeah, thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much. Spot on. No, thank you. That was amazing interview, and I really thank you for this opportunity. It's amazing to be here, and I do put my heart into my work. I don't sleep a lot. You can probably see my eyes. I'm tired from working last night too late and waking up too early and working, but I do it for the community. I'm 100% here for teachers and for the betterment of good. I'm going to cry now, but I put a lot of work into this, so I'm really glad that I can be here and and just share this with people. And yeah, I think it's a great transformation of education happening at the moment. So thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, when we were conversing about trying to arrange a time to get this done, and you're like, well, I generally sleep between this hour and this hour. And I'm like, geez, I thought I was hardcore. But
Yep.
No, amazing. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.